Welcome to DEC TV, the streaming channel for the Drug Education Council in Mobile, Alabama. Our special guest for today's show is Trey Oliver, former warden of the Mobile County Jail. The host of today's show is Lori Myles with the Mobile County Sheriff's Department.
Hello and welcome to DEC TV. I'm Lori Myles and I have with me today a dear old friend, best friend, Trey Oliver, who actually used to work with me at the sheriff's office. He was the warden, and after you see him speak a couple of times, you will be shocked that he was the warden. But he was a great warden, and we love and miss him. And he is now heavily into retirement, doing fun things with art at, and I'm going to attempt the name of his art gallery, Lupercalia
Art Society. Very good, Lori.
Thank you. I practiced. So we got reacquainted. Well, we've always kept up since you retired, but then you and I went to something that it was right after I had lost Harrison, and you knew Harrison, and it was Beautifully Broken. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, well, first I want to give you and Virginia Guy kudos for making what we did possible, because you and Virginia came to me at one of the days at the range, executive days, day, and Virginia said, Trey, Celebrate Recovery is coming up. I think it was February, and we would like to do something in the arts. And we'd already had a few outreaches, our outreach programs at the art gallery, and so we had our first Celebrate Recovery. But the interesting thing was that about 2 months before you and Virginia approached me, I had attended, we hosted a Beautifully Broken evening at our gallery. And it was, I think of her name in a minute. Oh, I feel so bad. Anyway, she had a studio downtown. She's now at Central Arts at Presbyterian Church. Carrie Ransom.
Okay.
Carrie Ransom had By the Bay gallery and studio, and we went to her. Well, she does a road show, but if you went into her gallery / studio, she had an entire wall bigger than this with baskets of broken glass. Yeah. Blue glass. You were there.
I loved it. I loved it. I still have my piece.
Yeah.
I love it.
So anyway, and for those that at home that don't understand, what you're given is a paper plate, and you're told to go down the buffet, the glass buffet, and to pick out an assortment of broken pieces. And then she gives you a canvas, and you just start putting things together. You pour resin over it, and it makes some really quirky, unique art. And
you can relay your story in a piece of art. I remember that night there was one guy in particular that just saw the sign on the side of the road and popped in. I think he was like traveling through town.
Great success story. So, well, first the concept behind Beautifully Broken is to remind everyone that we're all broken. We're all shattered. We're all imperfect, and that there's beauty in our imperfection. And there's a lesson that goes along with this throughout the hour and a half class, and it really sends a message home. And there was a lot of emotional responses, and some. There was one particular lady who was extremely shy. She didn't say a word that night. I called on her anyway, and she said a few things. But we have followed her to this day, and she has come out. She reads poetry in front of people and things. It's just beautiful.
I love that.
And she's sober to this day.
That's great.
So the day before we had this Celebrate Recovery, Beautifully Broken, a gentleman from Colorado came through Mobile in his motorhome, walked into our gallery, and saw the poster about the event. I think it was either that night or the next day. His name was Lynn. He wouldn't mind me saying that. And Susan Ferguson, Dr. Ferguson out of South, is one of my business partners and a gallerist that was on duty at the time. And Susan quickly found out that he was a recovering addict. Or let me rephrase it, he was an addict.
Yes, yeah. It only had, I think I remember, like a week's sobriety, maybe.
If that. It was a very short period of time.
I do remember that.
And he expressed this to her, and she said, well, you ought to come to our event tomorrow night. He showed up. It was so moving. He had a long ponytail. You could tell he was probably on the road. I mean, you know, it looked like a roadie with a band, to be
Yeah,
honest
he
with
did.
you. And he sat there, and there was 3 different times during that evening, if not 4, that he got up and walked out. But each time I noticed, I didn't think about why, but he left his car keys and his phone at his place. And my wife was across from him, and she could tell he was having a real difficult time.
Yeah, I remember Laura tuning into him.
And Laura
yeah.
said, Lynn, can I help you? He said, I'm just overwhelmed right now. I just can't make any decisions. And she said, well, and so she slid it over and she helped him get started. And then her and 2 of my friends on either side of him, they looked at me and he was crying.
Oh, wow.
So I knew that was embarrassing, you know. So I sat next to him and said, hey, Lynn, everything okay? He said, no, he said, I wasn't prepared to make these kind of decisions. And I had to let that soak in for a little bit. He looked at me and told me how long he'd been sober. It was just a matter of days. And he was overwhelmed by which pieces of glass to select to make a piece of art. Which reminded me of my days when I used to meet addicts in the jail, and I had that when it came up to me that time.
That's what I was going to say. Take your experience of having, you know, I mean, what were you, the warden? 10 years? 12 years?
Well, 17 years.
Okay. So that's mostly what you saw in there, because they're in there because of an addiction. They're stealing and doing whatever to feed their addiction. So tell
Well, first
us
I told you, I was warden for 13 years. I was with the sheriff's
Right,
office 17
okay,
years, right before
okay.
you got there.
Yeah.
Well, one day, whenever I went to the back of the jail, we would always have, 1,300 prisoners. At that time, we didn't handcuff everyone when they went from courtroom or whatever. And normally when I was back there, I would always have a couple of officers with me. This particular time I was by myself. I was in a suit. Everybody else is in uniform. And this big strapping guy with red curly hair was walking on his side of the hall. These halls are 12 feet wide. And he saw me, and I saw him look at me, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I really wish I was by myself right now. Because these halls are huge, and there's no one in sight. There's cameras everywhere.
And there's iron gates that have to be buzzed, so if someone jumped you, it's going to take a few minutes.
Oh, it's going to take a few minutes.
Yeah.
Not going to be much left by the time they get there.
Yeah.
So this guy stopped. He wasn't supposed to stop, and I stopped. I looked at him. He's looking at me, and I'm thinking, he's sizing me up. And he said, he starts walking towards me. He's got his finger, and he's got that look on his face like he's about to shred my rear end. And he got right in my face. He said, and I'm not going to say exactly what he said. He said, are you the blankety blank 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 warden? And that finger was right there. I said, no, but if you wait a minute, I'll go get him. He's right around the corner.
Yeah.
No, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
I swallowed real hard.
Yeah.
I said, yes, sir, I'm the warden. He said, well, I want you to know something. I have been in your stinky ass jail for 14 months. He went from red face to started tearing. He starts trembling. He said, if you let me out of here today, I'd be high within 24 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a benchmark for me. Because as a young police officer, I was very judgmental whenever I would arrest drug addicts on the street. I'll just be honest with you. I was very judgmental.
Yeah.
Did
you just think how you chose this lifestyle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, look, by the grace of God, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but that was a real, and he told me, he said, while my son was in the hospital dying, I was out getting high. My brother was at his side. And I put my hand on him. At first I wanted to thank God.
For not killing me.
Kill me. Yeah. And I said, sir, we're going to get you some help.
Yeah.
So go back to Lynn in that class that night. Lynn told me he was overwhelmed. And I had it was deja vu. I mean, his life was unmanageable, out of control. He was indeed an unfortunate that needed a lifeline. I said, well, let's just get through this together. And so everyone noticed that, look, there's about, 15 people there?
Yeah.
And so after it was over with, he was one of the first ones to leave. And Laura and I looked at each other and said, we'll never see him again. Carrie, the host gallerist that night, looked at me and we talked about, she said, wow, what happened? I explained everything to her. And she said, we'll never see him again. I said, I know. I go back the next morning to get everyone's pieces to deliver to them because I brought Virginia hers and everyone. And when I walked in the door, I saw that motor home. It was an old motor home out in front of
He
her
was
gallery.
back.
He was back.
Wow.
He was living in his motor home, and there's a whole story there. I walked in. There's Lynn talking to Carrie, and we all sat down. He explained to me. He said, Trey, he said, this was a godsend. He said, do you know why I walked out 3 different times? I said, no, I have no idea. I said, I thought you were smoking a cigarette. Which he had quit that also, bless us. Already quit everything.
Everything at one time.
He said, I left my phone on purpose because I knew I wouldn't leave without my phone. He said, but I wanted to get the hell out of here.
Wow.
He took his piece and he put it in his motorhome. And I said, we'll probably never hear from him again, you know. We're Facebook friends to this day.
That's great.
And that was over
So
2
do you
years
think
ago.
that has, do you think being a warden and experiencing what you experienced back there, I see a softening is what I'm saying. You know, you began as an officer where you were, I'm going to arrest you, I'm going to throw you in jail, I'll change you by God.
Yeah.
And then when you get back there, you see that addiction isn't something they chose.
Right.
I mean, it's...
No one wakes up one day, I think I'll be a crackhead today.
Yeah.
That's not how it happens.
Yeah.
You know, there's gateway drugs, there's trauma, there's dysfunction in your child. There's all different reasons why someone needs a little crutch to, you know, to help them get through life. We all have crutches. For some people, it's gambling. For some people, it's just spending money they don't have. For some people, it's porn, it's sex, it's lust, it's drugs. It's
Exercise, it's chocolate, it's everything.
Yeah, exactly, right? So you just have to, there's no one silver bullet to fix all these people. So what we did then, we said, well, and Carrie looked at me and I looked at Dr. Susan and I said, hey, we started something here. This was magical. I had so many people say, something happened that night. It was almost like a, quote, miniature revival and recovery.
I agree with you.
So that's what I said, revival and recovery. That's what we'll call it. Because we didn't want to go in on Celebrate Recovery's trademark or the Beautifully Broken. So we called it a revival and recovery. And this is just a piece of art that explains what we did. If you go back into the I think 30s and 40s, Broadway had a saying, and this is an abstract. This is the stage, a Broadway stage. This is the seating area, and imagine if you would the Sanger Theater. So what are the most expensive seats in the house?
Front orchestra seating.
Exactly. So the event coordinators back in Broadway days called this the artist circle. The most expensive seats in the house because it's closest to the stage. A circle is significant because a circle represents unity, Alpha, the Omega, never ending, and so forth. And so what we started calling it was the artist circle, and we would invite these people, these artsy people. Liam, by the way, was an artist. He is an artist. And we said, hey, come be our guest. We're going to give you the best seats in the house. We're going to feed you. We're going to give you some drinks, non-alcoholic drinks, because we don't know what your challenge is.
Right.
And then, so what we did was we would have poetry readings. We would have art classes. We would do pieces of art. We would listen to music and dive into the lyrics. And it was very, very successful. Now, reality sinks in. And we would do a lot of preparation and show up, and sometimes 23 people would show up, and sometimes 3 people would show up.
Yeah.
And then we also noticed, and we had a lot of participation from sober living, I think it was.
Okay.
And so we would see different people every night. I mean every time we did this. And then so most all of us were in our own 12-step process and going to those programs and those meetings and Celebrate Recovery. So we had a pause on it, and we're doing just a few things periodically.
But if anyone wanted to get back into this and urged or wanted to, you know, participate in something like this, they could come by your gallery.
Absolutely.
And tell us where your gallery is located.
We're located at 358 Dauphin Street, right across from the side of the cathedral. Most Mobilians know where Buck's Pizza used to be, so we're 2 doors up from Buck's Pizza. We just celebrated our 5th anniversary this past October. And we're starting in a couple of weeks a program called The Artist Way. And that book was written about 40 years ago by Julia Cameron. She sort of brings a spiritual twist to the art of creativity, and creating. And so we're going to, as a workbook, we're going to do 12 weeks, one night a week, and anyone. That makes a great time for people. I mean, we're going to have people there who are recovering addicts.
Sure.
Yeah.
And for me, and I know for the lady Teresa who began the Into Light project, she's an artist, and she never did portraits per se. But when her son passed away, she did his portrait, and that's how hers began. And then what she has done throughout the country and various places where this art is displayed is she gets artists to volunteer their time to sketch these portraits. And at the end, like I'll get Harrison's portrait of him that another artist has done, and those artists are in recovery. And so for somebody that has lost a son, and for me, I paint. You and I took art classes together. For me, it's therapy and helps me escape and maybe go to a peaceful and tranquil place.
Exactly.
And I think
it's therapeutic.
It's therapeutic. And I love and I hope that Beautifully Broken, somebody will hear this message and know how important it is, and at least come by and meet you and see your gallery and all the wonderful various different artists that you have in there, but also maybe take up a lesson and give them an outlet of what to do.
Exactly. And we would tell people, because we met in we have an underground showroom, and it's no speakeasy, and we always go down there, so it's a sort of an intimate setting. We can seat 30 people. And we tell them to start off with, we say, listen, we don't care what you're, and we'll have about 4 facilitators and they're other artists, and we make them feel very welcome. We don't let them do a thing. If they want something to drink, we get it. If they want something to eat, we wait on them.
Right.
And we tell them we don't care what your problem is. We do not want to hear what your problem is. We want you to forget about your problems. Leave them upstairs.
I love that.
And we're going to entertain you, and we're going to have some fun. And without fail, I always would do a closing. I'll give everyone a chance to share, and they would tell me different things. But one of the common trends was, you know what? Oh my God, I forgot all about my addiction. For 2.5 hours, I was down here absorbed by what's going on, creating or painting or whatever. And I forgot. And then I said, well, here's the bad news, y'all. Reality is about to kick in. Now we got to go back up there. And we got to face those demons and those challenges.
So find a support system, which leads me to a group that I help lead with Virginia at the Drug Ed, and it's called Gulf Coast Families. And I would love to put you on the spot and bring Gulf Coast families to your art gallery and do a Beautifully Broken session with them. All these families have lost loved ones to an overdose, and maybe you and I can get together on that. And I like to have projects for them to do. So thank you for joining me today. And again, I hope y'all will visit his gallery downtown. I go there quite often and always beg for a discount on art. And I'm his dear friend, and he won't even give me that. But anyway, it's great. It's got numerous artists there. And I hope you join us again next time for DEC TV. Thank you.